Hey, how you doing? This is Tom, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show. And I've been testing this DBSOARS Power One emergency radio, and specifically testing the battery capacity, or should I say batteries capacity. This has two built-in batteries. It has no battery compartment for you to add any batteries. So it's got two built-in rechargeable batteries. And they are, let me show you my test results here, from the specs. It has two 18650 batteries, 3.7 volts. I think they're in parallel, which give you 5,000 milliamp hour capacity. Pretty good capacity for a radio this size. So this is different than other emergency radios I've shown you, which has had like one, which is only gives you a maximum of 2,500, and then you could add either AA or AAA batteries. This one has two, but it takes up all the compartment for batteries, so you can't have any other batteries. Now, the testing I've been doing is I fully charged the batteries, and then I ran the radio. I think it was on AM band, minimum volume that was acceptable for me, and I then see how long it ran before the radio cut off. And the spec was 20 hours. My test results was 75 hours. And I did this 2 times, and they were around 75 hours. So that was fantastic. The next one was, after a full charge, I turned on the beam, which is the center light right here. I turned that one on. I didn't turn these two outer ones on. Now, the center light supposedly only gives you, what was the number here? 100 lux. But 100 lux is plenty bright. And the spec was 8 hours, and I got 12 hours. That one took me a couple of tries because after doing this, which lasted for a couple of days, I wasn't checking this one as often as I should. So I would start it and check it after the first hour, and then after the second hour, and then I would get busy and I would forget to check it, and then I would do that again, and then I'd come back and it had been off for some amount of time. The last reading I had was like 8 hours, and the next reading that I tried to take was at about 15 hours, and it was already off. So I had to do that a couple of times and then set it up so I checked it every hour. So I finally got the test results there. The final test is my 5-minute cranking test, where I discharge the battery completely, and then I use let me get it open here just to show you what I'm talking about. There we go. I use the dynamo crank, and I crank after I've completely discharged the battery. I crank for 1 minute. I don't rest my hands. These are kind of hard to crank. And I crank it for another minute, and then I rest my fingers for about 30 seconds. And then I crank it until I get 5 minutes of total crank time. Then I turn the radio on, like I did on the full charge test, and I let the radio play and look at how long the radio will play. Now, what the radio did in both tests for the radio is, as the capacity started going down and down and down, and this was pretty linear, this indicator here of 50, 100%, 75, 50, 25, that was pretty linear. So it went down gradually. So I turned on the radio after that 5 minutes of cranking, and I played the radio until the radio went off. And then the other thing I noticed is that when the battery got low, so that the indicator was down to just one light, 25%, the radio would, at the very end, become intermittent, and then it would shut off eventually. And you could shut off the radio and let it sit for 5 seconds and turn it back on, and it would play for another 10 seconds. Anyway, the result was it only played for 16 minutes. That was a little disappointing, but I have a theory. I always have a theory. Don't know what I'm talking about, but I always have a theory. I think because this is set up for two 18650s, probably in parallel, that when you're cranking charging, or even the solar panel, you are distributing the output of the generator, in this case, to 2 batteries instead of 1. So the capacity doesn't get to build up as much. So I think that's the effect I'm seeing. Because on other radios that have just one 18650, I've gotten about double that playtime, about 30 minutes with a 5-minute cranks. So I think that's the difference. I don't know for sure. I'm guessing, but that's my guess. I don't plan on doing the solar charge test because these little panels, although this one's a little larger than most, takes a long time for them to charge a dead battery. Now, when I say dead, it's not completely dead. It's down to the point where the radio won't come on. So that's it. This thing does have a lot of capacity. And it has these dual lights. If you turn on these on here, instead of 100 lux like the center one, it's 500 lux, really bright. And then you can actually turn on all 3. That's it. If you enjoyed this show, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye-bye.